People, hope you're having a good Tuesday. My name is Joey Craig. This is my front room, and welcome to Same Seat, Different Day, number 9. So, what we're going to be looking at today is inbox questions that have been sent in, video footage from a new player, Bonnie Chance 2. I think that means good luck 2. Maybe the first one was taken. And live stream cash game action on partypoker. Where else? So let's have a look at the inbox for this week. So names are blurred out. This is a live game that someone wanted me to look at. So it's a 9-handed table, 1-2. Under the gun and under the gun 1 limped, question mark, open to £8 on the hijack. I called on the button with 3-4 off. Yes, 3-4 off. Now if you're one of my students and you start the conversation with, I want to talk about this hand, I called someone on the button with 3-4 off, I'll say, we're not talking about this hand anymore because you haven't listened to a word of what I've been saying. But you know, the actual hand's pretty interesting, so let's have a look at it. Both blinds folded. Both limpers called. 35. The flop was 5, 6, jack, with 2 clubs for a flush draw. Check to the pre-flop raiser. He bets 15. I called, and under the gun called. It's not me calling, by the way, it's the guy telling me the story, just so you know. Pot is 80, turn is 2 of diamonds, under the gun bet 25, question mark, raised to 55, I'm playing 400, under the gun has 200, I free bet to 150, now you don't really call it a free bet after the flop, but it is the third bet going in. They both tank called. So his question is, do you think raising is better or just flat calling, taking the risk of bad river cards? Do you think if I dodge the bad river cards I can get more value? I felt like I missed value in this hand, but I guess raising isn't bad. I can see merit in both, but want to see what you think, because I'm even scared of the river pairing the board as well. Right, well, that was really hard to go over. So what I did for us is put it into a hand replayer so we can actually have a better look at what's going on. So this is poker hand replays where you don't even need to log in and sign an account. You can just create a hand. You can choose the stack sizes, choose what players are playing. If you want to send me a hand, then literally create it on this and send me the link. Really easy. So let's watch this hand from the beginning. So under the gun calls, under the gun 1 calls. Now I've put the pre-flop raiser here, just put lag. I know the player that he's referring to. It's a loose aggressive player, and he is aggressive after the flop too. Now in a 1-2 game, if someone is raising very small from this position, it usually means they have quite a weak pocket pair, some sort of medium pocket pair, maybe not even as strong as 10 or jack, something like 7s or 8s, even smaller pocket pairs would be going through my head right now. Reason is, if this guy's got ace king, he's not going to make it 8 after 2 limpers, he's going to pop it up to something like 12, 15, maybe even 17, something a bit more substantial. When he's making this play, it's a good play if people around the cutoff and button are gonna make it huge. Are gonna make a huge raise if you just limp your pocket pair here. So, say he does limp and the button's aggressive, and he's just gonna make it 25, and everyone's gonna fold. He's kind of wasted $2. But at least this way, he's trying to take some control of the pot. So he's made it 8. Now, our hero has called on the button, so this, I can't think of any situation where I would call this hand uh, call this hand on the button. So if you think that the loose aggressive player is doing this too aggressively, just raise them. There's much better hands to call with here. You don't need to be flatting this hand. Just raise it or fold it, wait for a better spot, okay? Alright, so let's see how the rest of the hand progresses. When you flat here, other things might happen, so the blinds might raise. One of these players who've limped as well, they might be thinking of check raising. So, you know, it's just not a great spot to be in, really. So both these players call, and we go to a four-way flop. Okay, so this is pretty much one of the best flops that we can have hoped for, apart from hitting a straight. The one issue we have is that there is a flush draw as well, so we need to be really wary of that. If money starts going in when a club hits and makes us a straight, we need to be pretty careful. When we play 3-4, we're going to be making the low straight a lot of the time. So they both check to the pre-flop raiser, who bets 15. This is also another bet sizing tell, very weak from the pre-flop raiser. So he's made two weak plays now. He's raised to 8 when it was too small, and now he's betting less than half the pot as a continuation bet into 4 people. So I'm already starting to put him on a range of not strong, not even top pair, and still makes sense for him to have something like 7s, 8s, 9s maybe. Our best play here is to call, so we don't get blown out of the pot by check raises from these players here. Keep in mind, the best card we want to hit here is a 2, and it can't be the 2 of clubs. So there's only really 3 cards in the deck that we want to see right now. So just keep this in mind when you're playing hands this bad. So we do hit the best card in the deck. Seat 3 has started leading into the pot, which is really unusual play. Another sort of weak play. This looks like he's trying to see a river card for cheap. He may have a 1 pair hand, but it's not looking super strong. Now the pre-flop raiser makes it 55. This is the 3rd weak play he's made in the hand, right? So he's made it small pre-flop, he's bet less than half the pot on the flop, and now he's raised really small on the turn. So I'm thinking this is a reverse blocker bet, and if you're not sure what that is, let me go through what a blocker bet is first. On the river, if you're trying to see a cheap showdown and you're out of position, you can bet small. Now, this is to entice your opponent to just call, whereas if you check and they bet, you're going to be calling a larger bet than if you bet small yourself. Now, a reverse blocker bet is done on the turn when you're in position in order to stop the person who's led the turn to bet again on the river. So it would usually be an extremely small raise to stop them betting the river. Okay, so this is basically a min raise he's done here for 55. We've made the nuts here on the turn. Now usually in a 1-2 game, if we have the nuts, we need to be raising, but we need to take into account that these guys are not going to be paying us off with anything here or calling any bets unless they have a combo draw. If I had to have a guess, I'd say seat 3 has something like 7-8. At best, a combo draw with maybe 2 clubs and an ace, like ace 3 of clubs or something like that he's limped under the gun. And I would say that the pre-flop raiser, again, it looks like he has a pocket pair. I don't think he's hit a jack. I think he's trying to pot control with something like 8s or 9s. So, although raising would usually be the best play, I think actually flatting here would be excellent because it means the pot is going to be about 250 on the river, and if either of these players improves in their hand, then we can look to make another bet on the river. So they may improve to trips, they may improve to 2 pair. I'm not even worried about the board pairing in this hand, I'm just worried about a club really, or a 3 or a 4 killing the action, which we block anyway because we have those. So in this specific spot, I would take the chance. But our hero does make a raise, and as I would expect, they both do fold. Okay, so thanks for sending that hand in. I just want to go through those points in the slides with you, just to go through each part again, make sure why I don't love the play. Also, let me just see what's going on in the chat. So, I'm glad you can hear me. Hey, Urban Poker, Maldwin 2. The bets are nearly as big as my bankroll. Yeah, it's like that one I'm watching on YouTube for the high stakes games. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, you would think after 2 limpers, the reg would make it huge if they have a good hand. So I'm thinking that they just basically don't, right? Yeah, I think he wants a free or cheap river too, absolutely. So I'm not sure if you've heard of that term, reverse blocker bet, but that's certainly what it looks like to me. So just a few slides on this about the hand. Calling pre-flop is the worst option available. Folding 99%, raise 1%, and the only time that I would raise this hand is if the lag player opening to 8 has this as a bet sizing tell, meaning he's going to fold to further action pre-flop. So for instance, if we know he's doing this when he's got pocket 6s, we can go ahead and make it like 35 and he's just going to pass. When we play hands this week and make a straight, it's rarely the nuts, and there's only 3 cards we want to see, which is 6% of the deck. Remember, the other 2 was a club, which we didn't actually want. Seat 3 makes an unconventional play here, leading into the plot, and the pre-flop raiser makes another weak play by basically min-raising. Each action he's made telegraphs weakness. On the turn, the hand gets interesting. I would say that both of the players have no stronger than 1 pair hand, and they're trying to get to showdown cheaply. If we raise, the only hand we might get called with is nut flush draw and combo draws. If we think that by raising they will call with 1 pair hand, go ahead and raise. If you're in a game like that, don't leave it, it's a great game. I'm confident that no one has a set or 2 pair from the actions, so I'm not even worried about the board pairing, because the bets are so small and 3-4 is the only straight. They're not going to be slowing down. They're going to be really hammering the pot here, 80% of the pot, re-raising. They're not going to be min-raising there. So if the board pairs, I'd even think that's a good thing, because maybe someone's made trips. So it's a bit of a gamble. If we slow play, we need to dodge a club, which we can lose to. If that happens, I think it's worth taking the risk. That's going to happen about 20% of the time, and we need to dodge a 3 or 4 for the same reasons about 12% of the time. But remember that 12% of the time is when we get a chop. So this would actually be a good opportunity to slow play, given the weak actions of the players, and give them a chance to improve. Again, not usually a good idea to slow play the nuts in low stakes cash games, but if there was ever an opportunity to do this, it would be now, and take the risk of a hand that kills the action or potentially beats us. Their actions are so weak that I expect the raise to never get called here. If you flat and they improve on the river, you can be happier to call a larger sizing. Also note that if you do flat the turn raise, there's enough money behind to stack both players still. If I had to guess on ranges, under the gun would have something like Queen Jack, King Jack for a 1 pair hand, or something like Ace 3 of clubs, Ace 6 of clubs, 7, 8, maybe a combo draw there too. And the pre-flop raiser's doing a reverse blocker bet. So there's quite a few interesting concepts in that hand. Usually, if it was one of my students, I wouldn't have even listened to the rest of it. I'd say, fold that pre-flop, what are you doing? You're not listening. So he wasn't one of my students, but I thought it would be nice to break down that hand for him a bit. Okay, so that was a bit of concept there. So I've mixed concept of the week into inbox. So there we're looking at when it might be a good time to slow play the nuts. Think about what your opponents are going to be calling with and whether or not it's worth the gamble. And usually it's not, usually you go for it, but in this case it's not. Okay, so yes. Yeah, so if you can win a hand with 3-4, I can't remember the last time I done it. Maybe I checked in the big blind and something crazy happened. It's not going to happen very often. It's quite tricky to win there. I'd be discussing whether if they're playing 3-4, maybe they have some tilt or discipline issues that they need to be looking at as well. I see a lot of recreational players get frustrated when they see aggressive players raising 30% of hands, 40% of hands, and their response is to start calling with 30%, 40% of hands, but they're just going to get outplayed if they're against a better player. So you need to really pick your spots in those games. Okay, so I've had quite a few videos sent in this week. What I'm going to be looking at this week is Bonnie Chance's video. So let's take a look at that one next. Okay, let me just make sure it's in the right spot for you. Alright. Again, if you've got any questions about what I've gone through or anything to add, just pop it in the chat and I'll be able to go through that when I get a second. Okay, so I believe this is the first hand that we've decided to play in this game. Again, it looks like the quality on this video is really good and we're playing one table. If you do send in a video, please make sure it is one table because it's much easier to see the bet sizes. And yeah, if you play fast forward, then there's hand after hand and it's just much easier to analyze. So yes, thank you for sending this one in. Now, I mentioned this last week briefly about raise sizing in 6 max games. When you're under the gun, or early position, call it in 6 max, you can raise your bet sizing. I usually prefer something like 3.5 rather than just 3. It may seem like a small difference, but since you're going to be raising such a tight range from this position, well, your tightest range, so it's going to be something like around 15%, something like that. Just make it a little bit bigger. Now, the reason you don't do that in live poker games is if you say go ahead and make it 5 or 6x in a 1-1 or 1-2 game, it doesn't really matter how much you make it, you're still going to get 4 or 5 callers on every flop. So when you're playing online, it's quite rare that that's going to happen. It's usually going to go heads up or 3 ways. So you can make it a bit more without having to sacrifice and give up when the flop goes multi-way. Okay, so first thing I'd say is you can make it a little bit bigger when you're raising with this hand. I recognise some of these names actually in the 10 and L2, so that's good. This only Vizard player plays a lot, I think. Okay, so we've hit top 2 right now. Right, so next thing up that I've noticed is on the bet sliders. So in Party Poker, and I can show you this now actually, let me just give you a quick look. So I hope you can see this okay. If you go to options bet slider is just above here. Make sure it's in there. Now, these are the ones that I use. So this is pre-flop. So you can see 3.5 there. 3x will be when I'm middle position, 2.5 cut off, and 2.2 when I'm raising on the button and unopened pots. This is post-flop. So I've got in there 60, 70, and 35%. Now, if you're new to party poker and haven't seen the bet sliding option, definitely play around with it, because the defaults it gives you, although they are good, it's got half pot, 3/4 pot, and the max. Be careful with the max button. Is when you bet half the pot, that is usually a bit of a tell that you're just continuation betting with a hand that isn't that strong. So, for example, on my one, I've got it at 60%. That doesn't mean every time I bet 60% it means I have nothing, but it means that I don't ever have to bet 50% and cause people to play back at me because I've made it that sizing. I don't have to level myself that way. Also, 3/4 pot is a pretty big bet. 70% will do the job that you need it to do most of the time. I usually up that sizing if I'm playing against someone who is going to be cooling off weaker than they should be. So, for instance, I'll click the 70% button and then I might type in the bet something a little bit bigger to get a bit more value from them. The pot button, rarely used. I use the 35% pot button in situations where I'm in a 3-bet pot or a 4-bet pot, and I don't need to bet so big to get all in by the river or by the turn. Okay, so yeah, that would be the next thing that we'd have a look at. I'll pop those up again just while I'm going through the chat. So again, these are the ones that I'm using just so you can see. Pre-flop and post-flop. Okay, Clueless. So reverse blocker. So a blocker bet is usually done on the river when someone is betting small in order to get the person who's been aggressive in the hand to flat call. Now, this usually would prevent them bluffing or prevent them betting something larger than the blocker bet you make. So, for example, say the pot's £100 and the person has led £20 into you and you got like top pair, weak kicker. He's convincing you to call there rather than him checking and then you betting 50 or something like that. So that's why it's called a blocking bet. It's to reduce how much you're betting. A reverse blocker bet is done on the turn. So that would mean someone's led into you on the turn and you've raised them, but you've raised them really small. Now, the reason people do that is to try and entice the person who's bet the turn to check the river, thinking that you are going to bet big again. So it really just is there in order to slow you down. Blocker bets are there to scare you into not making your usual play. So yeah, be really aware of that. When it's a reverse blocker bet, it's usually very small. In the hand I went through right at the start, the bet was 25 on the turn, and the blocker bet was 55, so it's usually something like a min raise. Liam Arnold PK, yo! Yeah, 55%, 70% is fine. I mean, it depends on the board textures. It's pretty much the same, but I think the 50% precisely, you might level yourself into thinking, is he just raising me? When I'm in a pot against someone who's betting 50%, 50%, straight away I'm thinking, they probably don't have much, and I might float a bit more than I usually would, with hands that are a bit wider than my usual calling range. Okay, I think we're actually one hand in on the video, so let's get back to that. So we flopped top 2 here against the big blind who has called. So we're definitely looking to bet this. I'd be looking at 3/4 pot with these bet sizes. The reason is, if they have any gut shots, they're going to be calling anyway, one street, so just bet big. The king's an interesting card. I do believe we should bet again, but I wouldn't bet so big. You need to think about what sort of hands they're going to be calling with now. So flush draws certainly in their range. However, have a think about what flush draws they might have. I mean, the ace of clubs is already on the board, so that reduces their nut flush combos. The king of clubs is on the board, so that reduces their king of flush combos. So it looks now that they may have a pair and a gut shot, possibly a straight if they're winning. So yeah, I'd go for half pot and I'd be a bit more cautious. If we bet 3/4 pot, I'm not sure if our money's going to be going in especially good. So yeah, definitely bet, but just be wary. You're looking to get value from something like an ace-8 or ace-9, and it's easier to get called if you bet half pot with those hands. So yeah, we've bet slightly bigger, which is fine. It just means that if he continues, we may not be winning. If he raises, it means we lose a little bit more. So because of that raise size, we don't have the odds to go for a full house, and I don't think our prospects are looking good. If we had the queen of clubs, we would call this definitely. Otherwise, I don't think there's anything else we can do here. This is a fold. Okay, so from middle position, I would usually make it 3x here with all of my range, which it looks like we're going to do. Again, another interesting board. So we've got the nut flush draw and the straight draw. I would go ahead and, with these bet sizes, I would go for the 3/4 bet size. Perfect, so played that one well. Okay, against a middle position raise, I'd be looking to pass this ace-jack. If I could think of a good reason, just pause it a sec. If I could think of a good reason to play it, it would be because the big blind is extremely weak, and by having a pot that's going to be about $1, if we all call, it's going to be quite easy to stack him when we stack top pair, top kicker. Sorry, when we hit top pair, top kicker against Broily 200, I think his name is, who's in the big blind. So if we did hit an ace or jack on the board after this, we would just be betting and trying to stack him. Also, if he is a weaker player and the other pre-flop raiser is someone who's observant, he's going to realise that we're not going to be bluffing very often, so he's not going to cause much trouble and just fold too. If this ace-jack was suited, I might consider squeezing, but you'd be committing yourself against the big blind there, so I wouldn't bother. Jack-9, we would open this on the button. I'm interested to see what raise size our hero is going to choose. So, hey Connor, how's it going? So, I thought 85, 90 and fold if they come over the top. Yeah, so once they come over the top in that hand when the flush came, it's going to be really tricky to be winning. So it looks like we've gone for a 3 big blind raise. Now, I like this raise if the players in the blinds are very, very rarely going to be free betting you aggressively, and they're going to be calling a lot. So basically, if they're fishy players, then just make it bigger, because they're not going to be re-raising you. And you can take advantage of your card advantage and your skill advantage and positional advantage. Now, in a usual 6-max game, if you make it this sizing, you're going to get re-raised, and a lot of the time you're not going to want to continue. Jack 9 is an okay hand to continue with, but against your entire range, you're just going to save money when you get free bet. So you just make it something like 2.2, 2.5. If 3/4 size is not available, what do you suggest? So on the flop urban poker and single raise pot, it would usually be something like 60% or 70%, something like that. But having the two bits as 50% and 75%, which a lot of players leave, there's quite a big discrepancy between those, and usually they bet 50 when they don't really have anything, and they bet 75 when they do. So when you bet 60, 70, it's a little harder to discern, or it's less obvious of whether you have a value hand or not. Does that make sense? I'd use a 3/4 pot size bet as a default with my value hands against someone who's going to call too much, yes. See, this player here, when he made it 2.5, that's a better raise size that you can use there. That king 3 suited hand is not good enough to call, especially if we might get squeezed behind. But if we have information that the open raiser is folding too much, we can turn the suited kings into a bluffing range by free betting them. They're not good enough to call, but they're good enough to free bet bluff with. I see a lot of players here with ace queen free bet as a default whenever they have something like pocket tens, pocket jacks, even hands like ace jack, ace queen, ace king versus under the gun opens. I don't always think that's correct, especially when, if we look at the players in the blinds, they're short stack, which usually means that they're weaker players. We want to get them involved. Now, the pre-flop raiser has opened pretty small, so I might be slightly more inclined to free bet this hand, but I wouldn't usually do it as a default. We have a positional advantage. We need to think about what hands they're going to be continuing with if we free bet. So let's just, I think I'd be more inclined to flat here, but let's see what the hero does. Okay, so when we raise this hand, it means it's less likely that the under the gun player is going to be continuing with hands like ace 10 and ace jack, but it does mean that they're likely to be continuing with hands like ace king, hands like pocket jacks, hands like pocket tens. Also, we leave ourselves open to being 4-bet. Now, that essentially is turning our ace queen into a bluff. So we need to be really careful about when we're free betting under the gun opens. I actually prefer a 2.5 open on the cutoff and something like a 2.2 or even a min raise on the button. Okay. Now we can adjust those sizes based on how often we think we're going to be free bet. Oh, you reckon some of these too as well, Maldwin? I think that Jacko 1987 looks familiar as well. Maybe he plays 5-0? Okay, let's see what happens in this ace-queen hand. We're getting ace-queen a lot in this, aren't we? Okay, so... Oh, we got ace-king now. So... If I was playing this fast forward game regularly, I would be making a note on that player from the last hand, saying that when they open to 2.5x under the gun, I'm going to be free betting them with all the hands that, like those suited kings, hands that aren't good enough to call with, and I'd be flatting my stronger hands because if I free bet them, I'm just turning into a bluff and he's going to fold. So that would be something that I'd like to take a note of. Dr. Tom, welcome. Our hero's constantly getting top pair, top kicker in these hands. Okay, so when the cutoffs opens and we have ace-king, this is a totally different situation to under the gun. We do need to free bet this hand, and we're free bet stacking it off against someone who's got 60 big blinds. We don't need to raise as much as normal, so I think the hero made it 0.95. We only need to make it something like, you can make it 0.8 here. We can get all the money in on the river easy. Yeah, you're right, the free bet 0.95 was quite big, yeah. So looks like we're making it really quite big here. Okay, so by making it 155, be careful of the timer as well when you're doing a raise, by the way. By making it 155, that leaves the stack size extremely awkward on the flop if we miss. If we get in a third of their stack, then it's okay to shove when we miss because we can still hit an ace or king. But when we get in 25% of their stack, that is extremely awkward. Also, I don't think they're going to be calling this when we make it this large very often at all. So I'm not a big fan of this raise size. We should raise but make it a little bit smaller. Like 0.8 would be good. So Maldwin said, would a smaller free bet to say 60 keep weak guys in? Potentially, it does allow you to get 4-bet more often though when you do that. Now, say the situation was under the gun has opened to 2.5, and you know they're a weak player and you want to get heads up, and you're in middle position next door to them, and you've got ace-queen. I think that's an excellent time to raise to 60 or 70, because what that does is you free bet and it essentially locks out the whole table for you to get heads up in position with a card advantage against someone who's going to play their entire range against you. When you're on the button though, it doesn't make as much sense to do that, but I do like your thinking there. Alright, so this person in the big blinds has just completely snap called us there. I'm actually hoping that the cutoff shoves and we can reshove now. Okay, so this hand is over now. We're just check folding. I think we could have saved some money there by not free betting so big. Very disciplined fold there with King Queen. I mean, that was a good fold there. Yeah, it did look like he was going for the third stack and then shove the flop. But when it's 25% stack, it makes it way worse. The third stack shove is okay, but keep in mind that he's got 60 big blinds, so it's quite rare that they're going to call off 20 big blinds pre-flop unless they've got a pretty good hand. If we free bet the ace king too big, we let the cutoff make less mistakes. Yeah, so when we free bet that large, it means that if we think they're a weak player, then we're not going to be bluffing them off the pot when we miss. So we're essentially putting in more money than we need to stack them after the flop. If we make it from 30 to 75, we can still stack them and they might continue with their whole range that they're opening from the cutoff. Yeah, big blind did snap him. Absolutely snapped him. Looked like we were thinking about raising that suited jack there. Yeah. Yes, that big blind cold call is pretty standard. Oh, any pocket pairs going straight in, yeah. Doesn't matter what the stack size is. Okay. So, let's see what's going on. So, ace jack suited against the reg only wizard. So, okay. I usually do not have a flatting range on the button versus a cutoff open unless I have a pocket pair. It's quite similar to playing the small blind. This is really close. I think I would actually flat this hand because I would prefer to play it in position against the blinds who are going to continue quite wide. Whereas I think we're turning it into a bluff when he opens from the cutoff and he's not going to continue very much. This is one of the only hands that I might flat on the button. I'm usually free betting everything when the cutoff opens. I may need to go through that in a theory video another week. So I don't mind a raise here, we could go either way, but he is just going to fold straight away so often. And it's a pretty good hand. So we're potentially wasting a decent hand there. The biggest pre-flop raise. Uh, I don't think there's a limit. Anything up to 100% of their stack. Don't feel pressured into calling just because it's only 10 cents more. You don't have to defend 5 high, trust me. It's a bit like if you, say you go into the shop and you're going in there, you're doing your normal shopping, and then someone's saying, hey, do you want to buy a roast chicken? And you're like, I don't want a roast chicken. And they say, well, it's only £1. And you're like, I still don't really want a roast chicken, but if it's for £1, why not? I'm not going to eat it, but I'm not going to win the pot. Does that make sense? Am I making sense there? You're getting a discount on something you don't even want, so just fold it, and you can get through another 5 hands rather than just thinking about it, playing a hand out of position with 5 high. Just get rid of it. Speed up the shopping, you know? My record is 12 big blind and got 3 callers at NL5. Yeah, one of the things I like to do in live games, if there's a super weak loose player in the big blind who, you know, not to be mean to them, but they're a fun player, they don't really know much about strategy, and I've got a hand like Ace Jack, a hand like King Queen, I might just raise like 10x or 8x because the whole table is just going to be looking at me thinking, why the hell are you raising that big? And then the big blind's going to look down at 10 Jack and be like, yeah. And you just go in with skill advantage, card advantage, positional advantage, and the pot's bloated. So it's a great way to get heads up against someone that weak. And you're not going to get free bet like ever. Again, even though we have a pocket pair here, we should still be raising to 3.5x. This is a hand that connects really well with the big blind calling range, so yeah, I do think checking and hopefully hitting a 3 is going to be our best option. If he checks again, we are going to bet. I don't expect him to check again though, yeah. Crazy X, do you play on this limit as well? Okay, so again, unless we think the big blind is an extremely weak player, we can flat here, but we do not have a flatting range against the button open. So we would definitely be free betting this hand here. I'd be interested to see what Hero does, even if he calls or folds, or but I would make it about $1 here to go. Yeah, so the King Jack fold there is a little bit tight. So again, going through a Fury video against big button opens in the blinds would be really handy there, especially the small blind. Just want to see how much time's left in this vid. So 9 minutes in, okay. we can defend this ace-8 off against the min-raise on the button. I get the feeling with hero might fold. I don't understand why we're raising this. So this is a pretty big mistake. When we're in the big blind, we can flat here because we're getting an excellent price with a hand that's likely beating their range. When we free bet them, it leaves us open to getting 4-bet. And if we think about their continuing range, just think again, are they going to be continuing with hands like ace-5, ace-6, ace-7, or are they going to be continuing with hands like ace-10, ace-jack, ace-queen? They may even be turning hands like ace-3 and ace-4 into 4-bet bluffs now. We had a good price to call pre-flop, and we potentially had a range advantage, so I think this is a pretty big mistake here. See what happens. There's like no good flop here. If we hit an ace, we're not even sure if our kicker's good right now. Yeah, so this hand's over, basically. So we raised to 3.5x in early position because we're playing a tighter range. We're not expecting a lot of free bets, so we can exploit that by raising more. That's the same reason why we raise smaller on the button, because if they make a free bet sizing error, we can call more. And it's cheaper when they free bet and we're ditching it, because we're going to be raising like 40-50% of hands. I'm going to be looking at doing possibly another couple minutes and then playing some streaming on Party Poker. Again, this is a hand where people like to free bet it quite a lot, because it's an okay hand, but just think about what they're going to be continuing with. I much prefer a flat here. I get the feeling the hero might flat this, actually. Thanks, Crazy X. Yeah. If you play these limits and you're looking to learn, send in a video. I've got quite a few lined up at the moment, so it may be on the week after next. Sorry, let me just go through this hand. So we got check 2 on the flop, and we're betting. I like the bet size. It looks like the middle position opener is going to be check giving up on this flop a lot. So when we have a hand this strong, you don't need to bet half the pot, because if he's check folding, he's check folding. If he's going to check call, he's going to check call. So just bet big. I'd be surprised if that player did anything there apart from fold, actually. Oh, so the reason we defend ace-8 off there is because although we're out of position, it's like the best of a bad situation. If we free bet, it puts us in much worse situations. If we fold, it's too tight, because we're going to be folding too much and people are going to be stealing more often from us. Ace-8 plays pretty well. If we hit an ace and the button is opening all of the aces, then we're going to be doing okay against that range. If we hit an 8, it's a medium pair, and we can possibly get to showdown too. Yeah, also because of what Crazy X said, it makes sense to call. By free betting, it just puts us in a bad situation. I can't see anything good happening there, really. Like, even if we hit the ace, we're not really happy. Okay, yeah, so maybe going through some defending ranges would be good. When I'm thinking about defending in the big blind versus button opens, I'm usually defending something similar to my cut-off opening range. So that stops people stealing from you more often. If you're free betting your entire range in the big blind, then people are going to exploit you by 4-betting you if they're paying attention. Okay, so thanks very much for that video. We've got loads of content to go through, so don't remove that video. But I think we've been on for about 45 minutes now, and I did want to do a bit of live stream playing for a bit, so I'm going to go on to that now. But thank you very much for that, and I'm sure there's going to be loads more good hands to go through in that. Okay, so first thing I do every week is see what we've won on the reward section. Remember to do this every day, guys. So they give away the free tickets. So just check if you've won one, by the way. What have we got? Ah, I thought it said £200 ticket then for a second. Alright. Well, you know, it's free. It's worth a click anyway, isn't it, right? Okay, so you may have noticed some changes in the Party Poker lobby. So they've added in 25.50 3 weeks ago. They've just put on a 2-5 game, and it looks like someone's sitting down there. So I wonder if that is gonna be... it doesn't say on the player name list. Unless I do this maybe. Knight the Best. Okay, got a feeling he's going to be a pretty good player there. I don't think I'll be playing 2-5 with him, heads up. So, have you guys got any preference to what I play? I mean, it's probably going to be between this one and this one, isn't it? Should we play some 10-25 or 5-10? I'm just going to grab a drink. Let me know. I don't mind playing either one. Alright, let's do some 10-25 there. Yeah, that's a pretty good looking range there, Crazy X. Yeah, so we'd be free betting the hands that we can't call with because they're not strong enough to call with, but they can still flop pretty well. Hands like 5-6. You make some of the same mistakes. Well, then it was a perfect stream for you, Urban Poker. Alright, let's try and win a few stacks here for 15 minutes or so. Just going to play one table so I can kind of explain what's going on. Remember to opt into the cashback as well in the lobby. You have to do that every week. That was nearly a great spot to cold 4-bet there, but I just noticed the pre-flop raiser didn't have enough money. Yeah, I'll be taking donations for the 2-5 if you want to see that. No problem. Yeah, shall I play 5-10? You might be able to help me out with some reads, Crazy X, if you can get on there. Get on the 5-10, yeah? Alright, alright. Yeah, he's the first player I've seen sit down. I think that limit only started today. Alright, let's jump into this one. I'd usually be betting here and betting again as a bluff and then taking it down on the river, but I don't expect this guy to ever fold because he's playing 33% of hands, and I do expect him to hero call me on a 4 straight board here, so I'm just going to give up. Yeah, so he's going to do weird things like check middle pair all the way there. Urban Poker, send in a vid. Okay, so we have a gut shot. We're going to bet this once and give up. We've hit a jack. I do not think it's going to be any good though. Maybe it can go check check and he's got pocket sixes or something. I would like to check what they have, but my Hold'em manager isn't. Sometimes if I go and check the hand, it crashes my whole computer. That happened once, so it's not worth it when I'm live streaming. No, I'm not raising any ace in the cutoff. I'll raise any suited ace, and something like ace 7, ace 8 would be good. My big blind defending range, so yeah, ace 7, ace 8 off would be fine. I'm also not going to be topping up while I'm playing for 2 reasons. 1, so you can see the difference in stack sizes. And 2, because people might think I'm a huge whale because I'm not playing 100 big blinds. Justin Bieber there, under the gun. I don't mind min raising the button, but I think adding a tiny bit on, you know, just helps a little bit. I was planning on raising any turn if he bets, but that jack connects pretty well with his range. Okay, we are going to bluff this river because there's a straight on board now. Ding. We don't need to bet really big. I mean, if he's got anything, he's going to call, but hopefully he doesn't. I love this hand. This is a great hand. So we don't have any information on this player, but we are going to be raising him in this position. Again, I don't really like flatting the button there with any range. Yeah, my dad built this computer with his bare hands, so if it crashes, you know, I don't tell him I broke it. We're definitely calling this because that's a mistake from him. We do not hit a 5, so unfortunately we have to give up. Yes, by not topping up it does change the pre-flop ranges and definitely the free betting ranges too. As you will see. So we flopped against someone who has not made one raise. This is a very drawy flop. We're going to bet small here because I don't think he's going to notice if we're betting half pot. We want to see a cheap river. So we're just betting small here, hoping to get to showdown cheap, and we're giving up on this river. Against a normal player, I'd be betting a bit larger there. So if you're playing someone who's extremely weak, you can actually value bet ace-king if you're betting like 30-40% of the pot, because they're going to call you with hands like ace-jack. Yes, that 50% was not a value bet. So I'm betting the 3-3 on the turn there as a protection bet because it might be winning, and also he might fold a slightly better hand, and if he's on a draw he will call because it's quite a small bet. But once he calls that, I need to bet the river because I'm not winning. But it depends on the way the board runs out. That was one of the perfect cards to bluff because it just looks scary and I'm not winning otherwise. 7-8 suited is one of the best free betting hands we have. This is not a good board to bet, so although 7-8's a good plan B hand, plan B is over. So we have a gut shot now. Still not good enough to do much with. Let me just think. 60. Unfortunately, even if we hit this board, I don't think he's going to have anything to pay us off with. It looks like if I had to guess, I think he's got jacks in his hand. Yes, Queen 10 suited is an open raise in any position in 6 max. Well, Liam, the answer to that is, if I'm usually playing 4 tables of Zoom, or fast forward, I mean, then I'm getting probably through about 1,200 hands an hour. So with like a 15-second time bank on each table. So if I'm doing that when I'm playing live poker, it's like it's in slow motion, to be honest. So because I've already played that spot 1,000 times, it's pretty cut and dried. So this is another situation where I'm definitely going to be raising the cutoff open. I don't need to make it as big now because I'm short of stacks, so I'm just going to go ahead and make it 80. Just like when I raise the 7-8 hand, it doesn't have to work every time, it only has to work a small amount of the time to be profitable. He's also less likely to 4-bet bluff me here because I'm short stacked. This is a spot where I'm going to bet once and give up. Yeah, so sometimes it's better to free bet when you think it's going to be, what's the word? When you know it's going to be profitable, or squeeze when you know it's going to be profitable. Don't think that you have to continuation bet the board, but that board was a pretty good one to do it on. So This player who's opened here is 4-betting too much for me to squeeze this hand, but this is an excellent squeezing hand. It's going to be really hard to call a small 4-bet on the button with 7-8 suited when I'm playing about 70 big blinds. If they make a bet sizing error, then yeah, definitely. I'd much rather have 7-8 suited than something like Ace-Jack suited there. Okay, so he flatted pre-flop. We are looking to get it in against the button here because he flatted pre-flop. Yeah, I think Liam popped in the other night when I was apparently on a 2-5 game. Probably going to play for another 10 minutes or so though. Again, we don't need to raise very big because we're short stacked here. All right, let's have a look. Okay. I think I've had the clock called on me once in live poker in 15 years. And I've called it once as well. Okay, so we've got second pair here. We can't get 3 streets of value from this hand, so what we're going to do is check and call bets on the turn. Essentially, he might bluff. When he checks the turn again, we're definitely going to be betting, because I doubt he's going to be checking a 10 there. This guy in the cutoff is playing quite a wide range here, it looks like, over a large number of hands. So we're going to make it 80. I think I am going to... I'm contemplating stacking off against this player because he's going to be shoving weaker. So... okay, so this player is playing 38-14. But he's free betting 2.2%. He's never 4-bet before. So I've changed my mind. That's really odd. Usually if it's a player playing that many hands, they're probably going to have a 3-bet range of about 10 and a 4-bet range of about 8. But that guy is just never... He's never doing that with a hand worse than Jacks. I mix between 2.5x and 3x here in the small blind, big blind, but because this guy's folding 80%, I just want to discourage him and get the hand over. Yeah, why do I always end up on 2-5 after a few beers? I wonder why that is. And no one believes me when I have quads anyway. Maldwin, we're going to get round to your vid. Alright, we actually flopped something good. So we're going to go for a bet. I'll bet 70% here, but sometimes I do go for 60% if it's against a player who I think might try and bluff raise me. If this player raises us here, I don't think he's ever bluffing. I think he's probably got a set. Because of our stack size, we're just going to shove now. Let me just think. So the only back card, 2, 5, and... yeah, we're just going to put it in here. I think he has got a set and he's going to call. We've made a super straight. That's the great thing about being short stacked, is people are just going to stack off so much easier against you. So I'm going to play for another 5 minutes or so. This is going to be an opportunity to try something a little bit different. We're checking to call this flop, by the way. If a club came on the turn there, I would lead it. I was really hoping for an ace on the turn, to be honest. Let him rep it. I think against someone playing 40% of the deck, you got a stack of jacks there, but when I just looked at his free betting and 4-betting stats, it's definitely not winning, which is surprising against someone playing that many hands. I mean, he should have 4-bet once in 400 hands, right? He's definitely had aces and kings in 400 hands. Yeah. Alright, so against two players, ace queen suited, I think against two players, I'm just going to check this one. Great turn card. I don't think we need to bet this. I think we're winning anyway. If we hit an ace or a queen, then I think we might be able to get a value bet off him. The only hand I could see him having here that beats us is something like king 2 of spades. Yeah, so we did actually want to hit the ace against that. So sometimes it is better to check back. Just think about what hands they're calling with. See, this is why I love online poker, because, I mean, we're playing a 32-29 game here with a 20% free bet and a 0% fold to free bet. But you just can't do these things in live games because you're just going to lose all your money instantly. There's just a bit more to think about, you know? We'd really want this small blind to free bet us because he's free betting really tight range there. So he's free betting like queens plus here. That's fantastic. Okay, so let me just double check. So his free bet, yeah, 5% in the small blind. And what's this going on? He's over. Okay, so the reason we're going to 4-bet here is because he's playing such a tight range. So he's going to stack off easier. If he's free betting a really wide range, maybe we should flat there because we want to keep his bluffs in. So I think we actually ran into the bottom of his free betting range there, and it's going to be like jacks and ace queen. Yeah, so if a tight player is free betting you, then do not slow down when you have aces. If a loose player is doing it, think about flatting, you're in position, they're going to bet every flop, and then you just put them in. Thinking about cold 4 betting that, but this player here opening from early position is opening about 11% of hands, so I don't think it was an excellent spot there. So let's see what's going on in the chat. Oh, let me just put up next week. Okay, so if you have any questions, inbox me. So just do that on Instagram, or just literally email me. 15 to 20 minute video of you playing online. So like I said, I think I have maybe 2 or 3 weeks of videos sent in, but I'll feature them as soon as possible, and it's basically free personal coaching. So yeah, I do need the content for the site, but don't be surprised if it is backed up a little bit. I do save them, and I will keep them to put on. If you do want to recreate any hands, rather than send me something like this, it would be really handy if you go to this site. So it's called Poker Hand Replays, and you can save it on there and then just send me the link, and it's much easier to see than this. So if you have any concepts of the week you want me to look at, I might start basing that around the hands that you send in. So this week would have been more on when to slow play the nuts, thinking about their calling ranges and how weak their pre and post flop play has been. So that may be something I'll base it on. Someone did message me about how to deal with donk bets as well. So that's another one that I might have in the pipeline too. So let's see. Let me just see if I've missed anything in the chat before I go. Actually, Maldwin, when I had that ace-2 on the 6-6-2, my actual plan was to donk bet that flop multi-way, but because I hit a backdoor flush, nut flush draw and a pair, I decided to check raise. So the fact that I actually hit the flop made it a bit more difficult to play in a weird way. So usually if the button opens and the small blind calls, a lot of people free bet, and because that happens a lot, it means the button 4-bets a lot. Now, what I prefer to do is flat a very wide range in the big blind and then lead a lot of flops. So it's essentially a squeeze, but it's a delayed squeeze. So it basically saves money and looks less obvious than a normal squeeze. Because I think if I donked into that pot, it would have cost me something like 80 cents. But if I squeezed, it would have looked obvious, and it would have cost me like £1, $1.30, if that makes sense too. So a check raise would have been okay too, yeah. I think donking would be better with the ace of clubs if we do hit the board. But to be honest, I wasn't really planning on hitting that board. I was planning on taking it away. That threw a spanner in the works. I don't mess with less than the 4% free bet guy, but AA is very nice there, yeah. Alright, appreciate that, guys. So yeah, please send in videos. Send in hand of the week. if you have any replays, you can literally record them on the poker hand replays and send those in. If you have any other questions, then yeah, put them in the chat for next week. It's usually between 8 and 9. I was a little bit delayed this week because my computer crashed, but thankfully the internet was alright and managed to stay in for for the endurance this time. How about giving us some options, a live vote next time? Options for what? Options about who we're going to see play? I mean, I haven't watched any of the videos, so that could be an option. Yeah, maybe next week what I'll do is the first person who talks in the chat, I'll play their video. Maybe just for next week though, but we'll see. Alright, have a lovely evening guys, and tune in on Tuesday for next week, same seat, different date. I think Beta's going to be doing the party heroes tomorrow. She does those every Wednesday. So yeah, definitely log in for those. And there might be something special coming at the end of the month, so keep an eye out for that. And lastly, always go into the lobby and check if there's any rewards, any free tickets for you to go to Dusk Till Dawn. Really good free prize there. Yeah. I mean, it would have been interesting if I missed the board, because I think if I donked it, I would have just won there. Alright, have a lovely evening, guys, and I'll see you all next week. Thanks so much for watching.